Do you know what do you own today? 99% people in this world do not know what they own. So every Indian should have these five documents. I'll just again repeat those. First is a will. Second is a letter of guardianship. Third is the asset information sheet or the death dossier. Fourth is a springing durable financial power of attorney for incapacitation. And fifth is a living will.
Welcome to After You're Gone, the Will and Trust Planning Show. I am your host, Dhruv Jain. We all work hard our entire life to build something valuable a house, some savings, and maybe a few investments. But what happens to all of it after we are gone? Who gets it? How much? And will it bring peace or conflict to our family? This show is about answering those questions because planning your legacy isn't just about money, it's about love, responsibility, and making sure your loved ones are protected even when you are not there. So let's talk about wills, trust, and everything you can do to make sure your wealth becomes a blessing, not a burden. Today we have with us Dr. Deepak Jain, who is co-founder and director of NextGen Estate Planning Solutions. So today we'll ask him some questions. So what exactly is estate planning and how is it different from writing a will?
So, Dhruv, when we talk about estate planning, first thing which you have to understand is what is your estate. And that is basically what do you own. So, definition says whatever you own today is your estate. Whatever you will own on the date of your death is also your estate. And whatever you will own after your death is also your estate. But here there is a question which is a little different. Question is, do you know what do you own today? If I give you a plain piece of paper and I ask you to write the name of all the assets you have, would you be able to create a complete list? 99% people in this world do not know what they own because what they consider as an asset and what I as a professional estate planner consider as an asset are different. I just give you an example to prove to you that people do not know what they own. There was this person who was a businessman and he gave his business to his elder son. Post his death, through his will, his elder son inherited this business. But because he did nothing, his younger son got hold of his mobile phone number and email ID. Now what will happen? Either the business would transfer from the elder to the younger or both the brothers would start fighting. But the question is, when I ask you to make your will, how many of you would write in that will, post my death, my mobile phone number goes to this person, my email ID goes to this person? Is your mobile phone number an asset or not? Perhaps it's one of the most valuable asset you have created. But most people don't consider it an asset. In today's world, a common person has four types of assets. First are physical assets. Land, building, machinery, jewelry, gadgets, etc. Second are financial assets, shares, mutual fund, bank account balances, and many others. Third, which have become very, very important today, they are called digital assets. They could be mobile phone numbers, email ID, website URL, domain hosting, our social media accounts like YouTube channel, Facebook page, Twitter handle, etc. And lastly, it is intangible assets, our trademarks, our logos, our intellectual property rights, our patents, our copyrights, all of them are assets and all of them are part of your estate. Now, your question is, what is estate planning? So, estate planning is when you decide how would this estate of yours be transferred properly as per your wishes and desires after you die. That planning is called estate planning.
But what if somebody just owns a house or a fixed deposit? Do they still need estate planning?
So where would you like this house to go after you? Where would you like this fixed deposit to go after you? That planning you have to do. So it is not about the amount of wealth you have. It is about what do you want to happen to this wealth after you. And how would you ensure that what you want, only that happens? If I ask you a question, do you want to give your wealth to only people you want it to go? Do you want that it goes in the right amount in proportion as you want it to go? Do you want to ensure that after you die, it goes at the time you want it to go and in the manner you want it to go? Probably you would say yes. And whatever be the amount of wealth, whether you own one house, two house, many properties, whether you are a middle class person or a ultra HNI, all of us want to retain control over our property while we are alive and also after we die. And to ensure that our property is distributed as per our wishes and desires, we need to do our estate planning.
So then why do most people avoid or delay their estate plans? What are the top reasons according to you?
First and foremost reason is we all avoid planning for death. Death is something which brings that fear amongst us. And that fear translates into not planning for your estate. Right? That's the first and foremost reason. Second reason is people say I'm married, so I need not do an estate planning. Right? I am married, so I don't need to do an estate planning, which is very, very wrong. Because there are people apart from your spouse who would become your legal heirs if you die today without doing estate plan. Now, as per the religion you follow, your inheritors or legal heirs are decided. What? I'll just give you an example. Suppose you are a Hindu male and you die without making a will. So who will inherit your wealth and in what proportion? So if you are a Hindu male dying intestate, that is without a will, your wealth will be divided among these people. If you have a mother who is alive, one share goes to her. If you have a spouse or wife who is alive, one share goes to her. And suppose you have two sons, each son will get one share. That means one share goes to mother, one share goes to wife, and one share each to your two sons. That means it is divided 1/4 equally amongst your legal heirs. That is if you don't do estate plan. But if I ask most people how would they like their estate to be distributed after them, most of them would say first it goes to my wife, then to my children. That is what will happen if you make a will, not in absence of a will or a estate plan. Third reason people give me is I have nominations. I have nominations for all my bank accounts, all my life insurance policies, all my fixed deposits. So it will go to a nominee. Do you know a nominee is not the owner of the funds? Nominee is just the caretaker of the funds. And if you don't do a proper estate planning, don't back it up with a will, it will not be owned by the nominee. It would be distributed among the legal heirs. The other reason that people give me is that my children will never ever fight over my assets. I have raised such good children which will never ever fight over my assets. To these parents, I always ask a question. And I ask the same question to you. When your children were young and you bought them toys, did they fight over the toys you bought for them? And if your children could not share their toys while you were alive and they were kids, what makes you believe that they'll be able to share their inheritance after you are gone? So we must not assume an agreement amongst our children how our wealth would be divided post our death, but we must try to create one before we die. That is the pious duty of every parent, to ensure that their wealth does not become the reason of quarrel or spoiling the relationship between their children. And that is why most people should do estate planning. And these are the primary reasons why people don't do estate planning.
So you just mentioned about nominees. So are nominees and legal heir difference? What is the difference between the two?
So legal heir are people who would get your wealth in absence of an estate plan. Right? There are two types of death: estate death and intestate death. If I die after making a will or a trust, my death is called testate. That means I have given instructions who gets my wealth after me. But if I die without making a will or a trust, then it is distributed as per the law. The inheritors as per law, in absence of will or trust, are called legal heirs. But there's a provision in the financial assets generally and some society flats also that you can appoint a nominee. Most people think by making somebody a nominee, we are making them owners after our death, which is totally wrong. Because as per law, nominee has only the right to take over the assets and distribute it. They are not the owners. For example, suppose I have a fixed deposit worth 10 lakh rupees, which is in my name, and I have made my wife a nominee in this account. After my death, the bank will give this 10 lakh rupees to my wife because she's a nominee. But she will have to divide this wealth among my legal heirs. And suppose my legal heirs, my mother is alive, my wife is already alive, and I have two children. Each of them would be given 2.5 lakh rupees as per law. So there's a difference between legal heirs and nomination. What one must do is always follow nominations by a will. In your will, write that whoever is the nominee will become the owner of the funds post my death. Now you have completed the full cycle. Only nomination gives right to distribute, will gives right to own. Please understand the difference.
So if one has created a will, is that enough, or there are other legal documents also necessary for a complete estate plan?
So there are actually 5 documents which each Indian should create to ensure that they have done their estate planning. And these are the minimum. These are not the maximum. There are other things also depending on your estate planning objectives. First is will, as you mentioned. What is a will? It's a legal declaration of the intention of a testator with respect to his property that he desires to carry into effect after his death. When you legally declare how your property is to be distributed post your death, the document containing that legal declaration is called a will. Right? The second document which we all should have is something called a letter of guardianship. So many of us have minor children. And my question is, if in case both the parents pass away while the child is minor, who will get the custody of the child? Most parents would tell me it will go to our parent, that means the grandparents of the child, or the maternal grandparents, or to our brother or to her brother, which is totally false. As per Indian Guardianship and Maintenance Act, there are only 3 types of guardian. First is natural guardian, and only parents can be natural guardian to a child. In absence of parents, society becomes the guardian, and society is represented by a district judge. Now it becomes the judge's prerogative to decide who gets the custody of the child. And if you want to avoid this, we don't want to give the judge the right, there is a third type of guardian allowed by the law, which is called testamentary guardian. Each parent is allowed to appoint a guardian of their child while they are alive. And this guardianship is done through a document called letter of guardianship. So suppose you create a letter of guardianship where you say, in case both me and my wife pass away while my child is a minor, this person should be given the custody of our child. This document is called letter of guardianship. It's very, very important document which all parents should create if they have minor children. The third document which we all should have is something called an asset information sheet. When we pass away, the information which we carry also passes away. And to ensure that this information is passed properly and to the proper and correct person, we should create something which is called asset information sheet, or as I call it's a death dossier. Right? What information should be going from me to my next generation? That document is called asset information sheet. A fourth document is about the disability. Suppose you are incapacitated, you are in coma, you are paralytic, you are mentally unsound. Under such situations, who would be able to operate your singly operated bank accounts? who would be able to ensure that that if you have given a property on rent, that rent is taken from the tenant and a rent receipt is issued. Who would ensure that this rent agreement is renewed after? For that, you need to create a document which is called a springing durable financial power of attorney. It's a special power of attorney created for financial incapacitation, where you can appoint agents or attorney who would be able to operate these accounts and these assets on your behalf as per the terms and conditions mentioned by. It's a very, very important document called Springing Durable Financial Power of Attorney for Incapacitation. And the last document which I want to tell you, which each Indian should have, is something which is called a living will. What's a living will? Suppose you are on a ventilator for more than 15 days and doctors keep you artificially alive. Why? Because they are legally obliged to do it. And second, some of them believe that they are making money on your body. So what's the risk? The first risk is you are in lot of pain. And the second is your wealth slowly goes to a doctor or nurse. To avoid such a situation, you can create this living will which allows you to decide when life support should be withdrawn from you. So you can say, if I am more than 10 days on a ventilator, switch off the ventilator, keep giving me painkillers because I refuse to rot on a bed. That document is called living will. So every Indian should have these 5 documents. I'll just again repeat those. First is a will. Second is a letter of guardianship. Third is the asset information sheet or the death dossier. Fourth is a springing durable financial power of attorney for incapacitation. And fifth is a living will. And if you've created all 5, you can rest easy that you will leave an inheritance, not a mess.
So, in many cases, we have seen where both the parents have passed away and the children are still minors. So, what happens to children's guardianship in that case?
So, as I discussed before, in case both the parents pass away while the child are minor, the society becomes the guardian of the child. And society is represented by the district judge. Now, the district judge decides where the child custody would be given. And judges in India are not very forthcoming in giving custody of these children to individuals. They prefer organizations over individuals. Why? Because the ultimate responsibility of the child welfare is now with the judge. And judges want to ensure the well-being of the child. And how can they monitor the well-being? They can monitor it at a place where systems are in place, where processes are in place. And what do you call that place where processes are in place? We call them organizations. And what are those organizations who take care of children whose parents are not alive? They are orphanages. So would you like your child to go to an orphanage in case both of you pass away? For this purpose, the law has a provision of a third type of guardian, which is called testamentary guardian. Each parent is allowed to appoint a guardian of their child through a document called letter of guardianship. And all of us should create this letter of guardianship to ensure that only people we trust, only people who are best for the child are appointed as the guardian of our child, and we decided not left to the mercy of any judge or court to decide.
So, in case of incapacitation like coma or paralysis, what happens? What can we do to ensure that the assets remain within the family?
So, if you are in coma, you are palliative, you are mentally unsound, you have Alzheimer, Parkinson, which are becoming very, very common today. In that case, the biggest problem is what will happen to the singly operated bank accounts of yours? What will happen with the mutual fund folios which are singly owned? What will happen to any property you have rented out, and who will be able to take rent on your behalf and issue the rent receipt? If that rent agreement has to be renewed, what happens to that? And who will be able to do it? For such situations, we can create a document which is called Springing Durable Financial Power of Attorney for Incapacitation. It's a special document which allows someone to step into your shoes and do whatever you allow this person to do on your behalf in case you are in a situation where you cannot take financial decisions. All of us should create a springing, durable financial power attorney so that people whom we trust are able to operate what we require for our living expenses, for our medical treatment, and also for the family's living expenses in a situation where we are not able to take financial decisions.
So, is it mandatory to register a will, and how often can this will be changed?
So, as per law in India, registration of will is optional, not compulsory. In fact, a will need not be typed, stamped, or registered to make it valid. That means, on a plain paper, in my own handwriting, I can create a will without registering it, which is valid. But doing all three of them, putting it on a proper stamp paper with a purpose written will, typing and drafting it properly, and registering it in a sub registrar office makes it difficult for someone to challenge the will. It improves the efficacy or the strongness of the will. And we all should try to register wills made by us. Now, the second question you asked is, how often can I change the will? You can change the will any time, any number of times. Will is always a revocable document, a changeable document. Even if you write on a will, it's an irrevocable will. It is still revocable. So you gain control over your assets by making a will. You do not lose control because it is always changeable. You can always change.
So now that we know how important estate planning is, so if someone wants to start estate planning, what should be the first three steps we should take, and how you can help in doing estate plan?
Okay. So if you want to start your estate planning, it starts from the mind. First of all, imagine that you are not there in this world. Imagine what will happen to your family members. What are their requirements? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Then, after you have done that, make a list of all your assets, including physical, financial, digital, and intangible assets. Once you have that list, decide who gets it after you, when, in what form, and how much. Also decide, in case this primary beneficiary of yours is not able to take it because they pass away before you, then who's the alternate beneficiary? At least this much you should do yourself. Once you have done this, you can approach a certified estate planner or a specialist estate planning lawyer to help you draft documents that will ensure that what you want happens after you. We at Nextgen Estate Planning Solutions specialized in creating estate plans, wills, trusts, and other documents which I have talked in this podcast. We help clients create these documents. We help clients apply for these documents. And it is very, very necessary that all of us start our estate planning today so that we leave an inheritance, not a mess after us.
So thank you, sir, for your valuable time. Today we learned how important estate planning is and why it is a need of the hour. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.